Welcome, everyone, to another edition of 45 Forward, where our mission is to help you, our listeners from Los Angeles to Long Island, make your second half of life even better than the first. Today's episode is the story of an extraordinary artistic collaboration between two award-winning artists. They met through social media as seniors, not millennials. Holly Gordon, a fine arts and documentary photographer, and Ward Hooper, a watercolor painter, were introduced by a writer and mutual friend who noticed distinctive similarities in the work of the two artists, who shared an affinity for color and light. When Holly met Ward, the two immediately connected as artists, and they soon became close friends, meeting regularly and visiting local places that inspired their individual creativity. And the rest is history, still in the making. Today, you'll hear the remarkable stories of Holly and Ward, how their lives serendipitously intertwine, resulting in a highly successful collaboration of exhibitions, presentations, projects, and a book that combine their two works, Parallel Perspectives, the Brush Lens Collaboration. Holly, a multifaceted artist and longtime teacher, will describe her innovative use of technology to create photographs that look, at first glance, like paintings made by a brush, a process she calls photoliminalism. She'll talk about how she joined a growing contemporary artistic and social movement known as Techspressionism, an approach in which technology is used as a means to express emotional experience. Ward, for his part, will talk about the dramatic resurgence of his work through his collaboration with Holly and his use of technology himself as a means of teaching and widely sharing art to new generations. Theirs is a story of resilience, the daily pursuit of creativity as a life-affirming force, and the steadfast advocacy for the arts as a means of engaging and inspiring humanity, no matter what our age. As Holly puts it simply, art is a wonder drug. So now let's meet today's guests, Holly Gordon and Ward Hooper. Holly and Ward, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. And as we start, first of all, I want to say to Holly, welcome back, because you were on a very successful show last September. Another dynamic collaboration with a very talented videographer, Waldo Cabrera, and that you produced several original virtual exhibitions in collaboration with ARP and the Iceland Art Museum. They're terrific exhibits and very innovative in terms of, again, using technology to really bring these exhibits to life. So I'm happy to welcome you back. And today we're going to focus on another collaboration, this one with Ward, resulting in your book, Parallel Perspectives. Before we talk about the book itself, which is a terrific project, you two have a fascinating story. So why don't we start with telling me a little bit about how you met? And Holly, why don't you start with how you two connected and how you started working together?
Well, in case you haven't figured it out yet, I tend to be a little bit of a chatterbox, but so is this freelance writer, Elise Perlman, who unfortunately has passed away, but she definitely left her mark. One day during a telephone conversation that was going on for hours, she asked me if I was familiar with Ward Hooper. And I said no. But being technologically savvy, I decided that I was going to check him out on social media. And there he was on Facebook. Now, the crazy thing is, when I found him on Facebook that day, he had posted, unbeknownst to anything that was going to happen, his Long Island city. And when I saw that painting that he posted, it immediately made me think of something that I had created years ago that was so different from anything that I had previously done that I just tucked it away. And I found it and I posted it. And he responded to it. And the next day, because he was teaching at the Art League of Long Island, and it was springtime, his class asked him to do a floral arrangement, and he did a painting of these tulips.
Right.
Well, the crazy thing was, I was getting ready to have a solo exhibition called Tulips, and I posted one of my tulips. And Ward immediately said, "You know, Holly, we should get together face to face and see what other kinds of
That was the
discoveries we
beginning.
can
And
find.
right.
Yeah.
And
Take.
at Long Island, the Long Island City painting was the end of my daily commute. We ended up in Long Island City, and
Ah.
was the 59th Street Bridge and the city in the background.
So as things turned out, Ward invited me up to meet him at his house. And I just thought, okay, I don't know this man.
Huh.
I'm going to be very subdued, very calm. I don't want to
This
overwhelm
is very hard
him,
for Holly to do.
but I did it. And as he is showing me all of his paintings, of which he had hundreds of paintings on every flat surface throughout his house, I kept saying, this is crazy. This is uncanny, Ward. I have a photographic image like that. I have an image like that. I have an image like that. And the following week,
These were the beginning of the similarity.
I brought back work that I did that was similar to work that he did. And after a couple of weeks of just meeting and talking, Ward suggested that he take me to the locations that were of inspiration to him years earlier.
Yes, years earlier, I had done these weekly Sunday painting sessions with friends in Northport. Andrew Geller, he's a noted architect, or was an architect, his wife Shirley, and another painter on the same street here in Northport. So we went out every Sunday to a different location, painted on site, and then came back and had these long lunches, a lot of wine and fun at each other's houses.
Right. Now, Ward, let me just back up a little bit. So, and then I'll switch back to you, Holly. But so you've been a watercolorist for many years, but tell us a little bit before that. That wasn't your beginning, right? Or some of it, but you worked in the city. You were a graphic artist, right?
Yeah, my career was a graphic designer, primarily a package designer, but early my first major career was with the J.C. Penney headquarters, and I was head of the package design. In those days, they only merchandised their own items under their own brand, so it was a beautiful job. I had a great staff, and we designed everything from hosiery to power mower packaging. And I was there 12 years as an executive. Right. And then was a partner in my own design firm for another 10 years.
Right. Did a lot of work. I noticed looking at your CV that you did work for Avon, Wrangler Jeans, Battelle, Revlon, Saks, a lot of folks. So
folks. Yeah.
Well,
my work is still around. The Saks Fifth Avenue logo I designed, they still use.
Wow. Okay.
50 years later.
Right. Okay. So now we're jumping forward. You're doing watercolors. I guess when you met Holly, your career was in a little bit of a lull, right? And then, there was.
My wife had passed away, and I was at a low period, and then Holly came into my life and got me going again.
Right.
Actually, hadn't painted for a while.
See, that is what really got me. It was Ward hadn't been painting for several years, and he starts taking me to these locations that inspired his paintings years earlier to see how it might affect me. And it just caused me to explode, because for decades I was traveling around the world, and Ward's spiritual core was the North Shore of Long Island. And it was like all of a sudden, he reined me in and brought me home. And while we are going to all of these places, because Ward would work up an itinerary, and every Tuesday I would drive and he would direct me to where we would go. So it was an incredible adventure. And this was inspiring Ward, because he was going back to places that he hadn't been to for a very long time. But the best thing happened when he saw the image that I created from Condrey Hall, it made him want to pick up his brush and paint again, and he did.
That's a beautiful building on the North Shore of Huntington. And
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with that place, Ron, but it's a
Yeah.
huge building.
Yeah.
It
I
has a
actually,
sweeping lawn acres. It's familiar to dog lovers. They bring their dogs and they run all over the place. But it's a beautiful old building, and I had painted it years ago, several times. And when I brought Holly there, I had never painted the front of the building, which is now it's a really challenging architecturally. But I did it, and that was the start of my work again.
right.
So
Yeah.
kept going.
The one of the interesting coincidences is that when I was working as a newspaper editor years ago at Newsday, I rented, well, I actually bought a small cottage in North Huntington, and it was, guess where it was? It was right across the street from Kindra Hall.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. So I know it well.
Coincidental, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're familiar with them, of course.
I am. It's a lovely area. It's sort of a secret. It's set back a little bit from the road, so people don't
Yes, it
see
is.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It has a wonderful history. The original owner and builder of it, he made all his money and had the place built like a chateau in France. And then when the stock market crashed in 2029, he lost all his money and he couldn't pay his taxes. And the town of Huntington was after him, and he donated it to the Catholic Church. They paid $1 a year.
wow. That's great. So
the one of the neat things about this particular instance was, for weeks, my creativity was just exploding. And when Ward started painting again, it was like everything came full circle, because up until then, all of his paintings were works that he did years earlier. So I am sharing the story of what Ward and I are doing with a colleague, and he is just flabbergasted and said, you know, what you and Ward are doing is really special. Why don't you see if you can tie it in to art history on Long Island? And right away, it's like I had a V8 moment. Arthur Dove and Helen Torre.
Right.
And Ward says to me, I could take you to their cottage.
Wow.
And so he did.
Right.
It's only minutes away from Newport, of course.
Right. Ward, tell me a little bit about, both of you have talked to me about this board. Tell me a little bit about Arthur Dove and Helen Torre for our viewers who may not know them.
Well, they were a couple, and they lived in this little building in Centerport, right on the harbor. And I think Holly Holly asked me, do you know where Helen Torre's house is? Of course I know where it is. And so I brought Holly there, and a very interesting history. They lived there 2 years, Holly.
No, I'm not
They were
sure how many.
America's first impressionists.
Okay, wait, just hold on. Arthur Dove was America's first early abstract artist. And he came from Geneva, New York, and sailed into Centerport Harbor with Helen Torre. And they lived and worked there for several years. There were also other places that they'd lived. They may have also lived on their boat. I don't know all of that detail. But one of the remarkable things about the connection to them is places that Ward had taken me to were places that inspired them. And now we have been invited to do a presentation at the Dove Block Gallery project in Geneva, New York.
There must be
This,
some remarkable
thi-
similarities between some of my work and Arthur Dove, and likewise with Holly. It's really
it,
fascinating.
it
Wow.
was, it was amazing what I started to discover when I researched them. But July 22nd,
Hmm.
we're going to do a presentation at the Dove Block Gallery
Right.
on our book and on our story.
Yeah, that's a fascinating parallel. It's interesting how history doesn't repeat itself, but it mirrors itself. It sort of takes variations on a theme, and it's like well, I guess one of the techniques that my mother taught me was about pentimento, which is if you take a painting, sometimes you scrape off the top and you realize there's another painting underneath it, and I think that's so it's a fascinating historical parallel. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you figured it out. We're going to take a break in a few minutes, folks. When we come back, though, I'd like to talk a little bit more about, get into the book itself. But perhaps before that, we could talk each of your techniques, and we can get into your concept of photoliminalism, Holly. So we'll start with that, and then when we come back. So, folks, we're going to take a short break. But there's much more to come with Holly Gordon and Ward Hooper, an improbable pairing of distinguished artists who collaborated on a terrific book called Parallel Perspective. So don't go away, much more to come. Welcome back to 45 Forward, where we're talking today with Holly Gordon and Ward Hooper, artists, collaborators, and later life friends for life and art. Now, before we continue our conversation, I just wanted to mention that you can find out more about Holly and Ward's Brush Lens project by clicking on www.brushlensproject.com. And as Holly mentioned earlier, in July of this coming year, their book Parallel Perspectives, the Brush Lens collaboration, will be the part of a lecture series of the Dove Block Project in Geneva, New York. And you can find out more about this. Actually, if you go to my website, roelresources.com, and click on 45 Forward, you can see an episode, Holly's and Ward's episode will be on my site, and you can click on the link to the Dove Block project there, so you can find out more about it there. And then finally, to find out more about Ward's virtual watercolor painting classes that are available to the public as part of the ISEP Arts Masterclass program. You can see also a link to this class, isleparts.org/school, HTML, #master. So get all that information on my website, and by clicking on 45 Forward. So, folks, getting back to our conversation, before the break, we were talking about the intriguing comparison between Holly and Ward and early 20th century artists Arthur Dove and Helen Torre, 100 years earlier on Long Island. So we're going to shift a little bit to talk about each of their work. So, Holly, you've talked. So you've been an artistic photographer for many years, and as the trend, the art evolves over the years. You had painting, then photography came in and influenced painting, and now photography and painting are influencing each other. So talk about how you started developing this notion of photoliminalism. And by the way, tell me what liminalism means.
Liminal is transition, a period of transition. So it's where things are in flux. And just as when the Impressionists in the 1860s first appeared on the scene, the establishment didn't know how to handle it because it was completely new and different. So it took about 20 years for that to occur. And that's what my work is innovative. I've been doing this since 1999, off and on, because I see photography as a very fluid, malleable tool. And depending upon where I am or what I'm doing, that will determine what I do with my photographic images. But the crazy thing is, when Ward took me out the very first day to this Victorian house in Northport, and he started to explain to me how he viewed his subject. And if he didn't like something, he removed it. And if he needed to add something, he would. And if he wanted to change the color, he would do that too. I started to laugh because it was like, Ward, that is exactly what I do with my photography. And in effect, what
I liken
he
it to be a stage director. You can move things around. Well, it doesn't have to. A building house doesn't have to remain. If I don't like it, I remove it or I change it, or it's a process.
and that is part of what I always did with my photography. So Ward and I have created a confluential relationship to painting and photography. History very often pits them together as adversarial. And our book and our relationship really builds upon the similarities. And we both love color and light.
Yeah, pick up on that, Ward. I mean, I think that I'm sure that if I ask you to think about it, you could see how your painting has evolved over the years and your use of color and light. And
Well, early on, I had discovered there was a well-known art instructor, Edgar Whitney, teaching Saturday workshops here on Long Island from Douglaston. So I joined the group every Saturday, and old Ed, we call him old Ed, but he was a major influence on hundreds of future watercolors who became professionals and have books out, and they all dedicate their books to Edgar Whitney. So we would go out with Ed with his trail. He would head the caravan out to a painting location, and when we came back, we would stack our paintings up, and he would do his famous show no mercy critiques. And if you got a good one, he said, "Whose is it?" And you'd raise your hand at the end of the session. Did you got a whose is it for the day? It made your week until the next week.
Wow.
But he was challenging, and you never made the same mistake twice. So he was a major influence. And I was also influenced by the West Coast group of watercolors, Rex Brandt and Robert E. Wood, who I got to come. I had them come to Northport to do a workshop. And they were influenced by, of course, the bright sunshine and splashy colors, and they were noted group for their bright colors and forms and shapes. And I got Bob Wood to come to Northport, and he did a wonderful workshop. And he was a major influence. I learned a lot from Bob Wood.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think with each of you, I think what's interesting is that, art is how you choose to look at things. You can, when you were talking about, well, if I don't like that color, I can choose another color. I was thinking to myself, oh, this is the original Photoshop, in the sense that you can change what how you respond to the world. And I think, go ahead, Holly.
Technology is changing photography as we know it. And part of what why I'm so glad to be a texpressionist is, but part of what I have been advocating is I aim to humanize technology, because I am using it as a tool just the way Ward would use a pencil or a marker or a paintbrush. He controls what he's doing with what's in his hand. And I'm doing the same thing. And then when Ward would do these value sketches and then transport that to watercolor paper.
Right, that's my usual process on location. I begin with a small sketchbook and a set of gray value markers. And with those, I can do 3 or 4 of those in a few minutes a piece and pick the best design and then translate that. I have my design, I have my value plan in gray markers. And when I translate that to my watercolor paper, then my only major decision is color.
Mm-hmm.
I have my design established and my values established.
Right.
And the parallel to my photoliminal process is my photograph is my preliminary sketch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I add and remove from that and build up in layers, just like in painting, you build up with layers and washes and glazes.
Right.
And the thing
Process
too,
is similar.
yes, very, 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 very similar. That's why we are confluential and not adversarial. And decades earlier, a photographer I studied with told me that if I was serious about my photography, I should give up painting. And working with Ward, it kind of like brought me back together again, but it all came out through my camera and through technology.
Wow. Wow. Now, Ward, so you have similar approaches in the use of your painting and your brushes. But interestingly, technology for you also, for you, but also for both of you, has taken on a different dimension with just literally the use of, virtual classes, right, to really expand, how you engage with the world. I'm sure you do some in-person stuff as well, but it's really broadened the well, I was going to say, let's switch back to another metaphor. It's widened the lens for our audience. Tell us about it. So you teach a class of seniors, is that right? It was.
Well, no, I taught at the Art League for many years, and Art League of Long Island, and I enjoyed those classes immensely, and I still remain friends with a lot of my students. So that kept me going week after week and for many years. And I'm still painting. Every morning I get up and I have my huge studio down here on the main floor of this. I live in an old converted barn. I have a studio upstairs, but I have one downstairs, a large room. So I'm at it every morning and doing something every day.
Ward has a series. It's part of the Masterclass series that's sponsored by the Islip Arts Council, and it can be found on the Islip Arts Council website. Register for his watercolor series and
Masterclass, right?
And his masterclass series of watercolors, and you can see and take and learn and follow Ward's procedure for creating 4 different subjects.
Right.
That was an interesting video session with Wally, who was a terrific video cameraman. Had a camera. He came in, took him an hour to set up, and one camera overhead and one facing me, and it was here. 4 paintings and 40 minutes each, one after the other. It was a long afternoon. It was a bit stressful, but we got through it fine.
Right.
Well, you've been painting your whole life, so it just
it
flows
wasn't that
out of
bad.
you.
Yeah. But I think that really opens up, the audience, to a lot more people.
The interesting thing, I think, was that when I had Bob Wood come to Northport for my workshop here, and he would paint and talk about the process, and that was before I was teaching. And after that workshop, I decided I can do that. I mean, so when I wrote my teaching, I instruct while I'm the whole process, practically brushstroke by brushstroke of my watercolor from beginning to end. I explain exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, choice of colors. So it's a process. So many instructors, they're wonderful. They're wonderful watercolor artists, many great watercolor artists, but that doesn't make them good instructors.
Absolutely. Yep. We're going to take a break in a little while, but before that, though, I want to at least get started on talking a little bit more about the book itself and how you did the book, how you collaborated, how you put it together. So,
Sure.
because I've done some books. It's a big project. So tell me a little bit about the process of doing the book.
Well, what happened initially is we had a debut exhibit at the Art League of Long Island,
Hmm.
and we had a gallery talk the week after the reception. And the people who saw the exhibit and came to the talk, they were so taken by our story that they said, "You ought to do a book. You ought to do a book." And I just said to Ward, let's just keep doing what we're doing, and ultimately something is going to happen. And as things turned out, we were put in touch with the renowned book designer, Bonnie Bryant, who she just immediately was enthralled with our story and with our artwork. And she suggested that she do a book proposal because publishers like to put their own thumbprint on their publications.
Right.
And we were put in touch with a book packager who ultimately became our publisher, David Wilkes, City Point Press, and their distributor is Simon and Schuster.
Hmm.
So we had a marvelous team. We could not have been more fortunate to have been put in the hands
Connie
of
is
the
making
people
this sound,
who
she's
put
giving
together
you
our book.
the stages, but this publishing word is a really complicated word. It's another word entirely.
Right.
We
Right.
were very fortunate
Yeah, we
to
were indeed.
have the people and the expertise, even as far as they're choosing the printing company to
Mm,
do our book.
right.
And there it is.
Yeah.
And it's an international award-winning book.
Right.
We were one of 5 finalists for the art in the art category.
Right. That's great. That's great. Yeah. And people can get the book right on Amazon, right? They can.
Yes, people can get the book. Okay, they could get the book on Amazon and Simon and Schuster's site, Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble. There,
Yeah, it's out there.
you name the internet, because Simon and Schuster is all over. One day, I found our book on a site in South Korea.
Wow.
But
Great.
the book can also be purchased at the Northport Historical Society,
Mhm.
at Barnes and Noble in Bayshore,
Right.
and in the Islip Arts Council Gallery in the Westfield Mall.
Those are, of course, those are signed copies by both of us.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, as a member of the Long Island Authors Group, there is a whole wall of
Right.
Long Island
Yeah.
Authors Group books
Yeah.
in the gallery,
Right.
and our book is
Yeah.
there. And April 23rd,
Hold up.
Ward and I are
Yeah.
doing a book talk at the
Oh,
gallery.
great. So let's hold it right there. We're going to take another quick break. We'll come right back with you folks with more about that. But we'll take another quick break. Don't go away, folks. We have one more terrific segment coming up. Welcome back to 45 Forward, folks. We're talking today with artists, groundbreaking collaborators, and close friends, Holly Gordon and Ward Hooper. Now, before the break, we were talking about an exhibit locally in April 23rd, I believe Holly was mentioning, and just to let people know, of course, we're here on Long Island, but you can see a lot of their work online now, and you can. For those of you on the West Coast, you can check in on these artists now virtually. And Holly has also other virtual exhibits which she has curated that you can check out. So, let's talk about. So there'll be signed copies at this exhibition on the 23rd, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about just what the book, how the book was put together for
Well,
people.
it came together very sequentially. It starts out talking briefly about the history of art on Long Island. And then it introduces both Ward and me and the work that we did before we met.
Mhm.
And the work is all paired. So just as you could see on the cover, his Long Island City is so similar in palette and composition to my 42nd Street, and they were created way before we knew each other.
Yeah, right.
So then it moves into the collaboration, and the dialogue runs as a conversational commentary that Ward and I are having on a daily basis with the paired works, his painting and my image. And then we move into the extraordinary connection to Arthur Dove and Helen Torre. And it shows Ward's work that is similar to Arthur Dove's, and my work that's similar to Arthur's Dove's. And in both cases, they were created without any knowledge of what Arthur Dove did.
Right.
Then
Not
we
familiar with his work at all.
then we move into how this whole collaboration has solidified my photoliminalism. So that is a chapter, and it shows before and after work and discussion about the process. And then the next chapter is resilience and all the paintings that Ward has been doing since the collaboration started. So it's a visual memoir, and it is inspirational. It's filled with positivity. It's filled with innovation. It's filled with resilience. It's inspiration from landscapes. Like landscapes has inspired artists over the centuries. It's just filled with wonderful art, and it's just an amazing book.
I think you like it, and I have a copy. I still need to get it signed from you folks, but it's a terrific book. Anything else, what do you want to say about the book in terms of your view of how it came together?
Well, it was a wonderful collaboration from beginning to end. And when we began, of course, we had the process. We had no book in the future early on, and when it came together, and doing the book together, weekly sessions, and it was with writers and the editors and designers, and it was a wonderful process, and it came together, and we were really, really pleased with the outcome, and I hope anyone who looks at it will be pleased with the what we've created together.
Right. And now, when did you start it? It was
2014.
2014.
Really? So it started and finally came out in 2021, right?
Well, no, it came out in 2020. Okay, so we started in 2014.
Wow. Okay.
And in 2015, we had our debut. But it wasn't until 16 or 17 that we started to investigate the idea of publishing. Publishing a book is like having a baby.
Right.
Sometimes you have to try more than once to get it to happen.
Right.
And then the labor is long and strenuous.
Yeah.
And waiting and filled with pain and excited anticipation.
But we had a great team, and I had never done a book before, and neither of us had done a book before. But as a graphic designer, and I was very critical early on, but after a while, I put my faith in as a designer, and it came through. We're really pleased with the outcome.
And then when the book came out, October 6th, 2020, it was like our baby was born.
Right.
And all of the pain, all of the frustration, all of the waiting.
And I think I was more concerned about Holly, because this is what I did. But in my career, when I, as a graphic designer, and made designs and about to be published and printed, by the thousands, or packaging designs. Often I would travel around the country and approve the printing of the first run. And I was very critical. And I would hold up the run, and the the presses were waiting. I was crossing for my okay until I thought the color was right. But I had no say in this, so I was concerned about that.
Yeah, but when you put your faith and you have trust in your designers and in your publisher, we were most fortunate.
When we received our first copies, wow.
we were most fortunate to have been blessed with people who knew the publishing field and knew the market and knew everything and how to do it. We were very lucky.
Yeah.
We were lucky.
Yeah.
But we also gave them good stuff to work with.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's
part of the key.
Part of the key to being lucky is having good work. Yeah.
And you also have to be able to delegate to people that you have confidence and trust in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to spend the last part of the program just talking a little about you guys in terms of, the notion you mentioned earlier, Holly, of resilience. And I think and an ability to look at life as a sort of a continual progression. I think people, one of my previous guests talked about, unfortunately, for some in our society, there's been a model of aging, where you, like climbing a mountain, you get up to it, climb the mountain, and you get higher and higher in your life and your career, you get to the top, and then it's downhill. And that's not the model at all that, I think is really germane for a lot of people, including you guys. You guys have, it has never been, just stopping and looking. It's been always forward, like my show, 45 Forward.
Hey, I'm a senior.
Right. Right. And I think that I don't even know what that word means anymore.
I have a real positive attitude, as Holly does.
Yeah.
We inspire each other.
Right. Right. And Holly, you go out and take photographs every day still, right?
You got to be kidding. It's no, I don't have time to go out and do photographs. And I have so much work in files that I can draw from. I mean, one of the interesting things is I had an MRI of my left shoulder. I've got a tear in my rotator cuff. And when I was looking at those images on the doctor's screen, I was thinking, oh, I can make art out of that. So I want to do something like that. But it's like I don't want to admit to being a senior.
Mm-hmm.
I just keep going forward. And it's last year I got into the Great American Painting. I'm in the Texpressionist group. Finally, I'm now represented by Denise Bibro Fine Art. It's like things just keep snowballing and growing, to be invited to do all kinds of talks, of which I've got to say no thank you to on several occasions, because there's just no way to do it.
Right.
But we have this momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't have this momentum if Elise Perlman didn't put us together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a synergy, and it's amazing how things just continue to grow. I mean, Ward's Masterclass series that is on the Islip Arts website. I mean, that's from our connection. And it's just, and our talks, it's just, we're going to be talking again at the Art League in May. Right. Going back to where we started.
Right.
And it's just going to go on and on.
We've had many talks in there over the last couple of years, and we have a wonderful slideshow that goes along with our talk. And we're booked ongoing.
Right. Well, that's great. That's great. Any other projects in the works? Any other books, or any sequels, or any other spin-offs from this?
A good question, Ron.
What's that?
That's a good
Well,
question.
well, I have a second book in process,
Mm-hmm.
but this has kept me so busy. I
Mm-hmm.
want to do an evolution from the traditional black and white darkroom
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
into where I am today,
Right.
but it's just loosely scattered files. There
Mm-hmm.
was an author who, in the back of the book, she had written, "Writers write and authors speak."
Okay.
And in effect, there's just so much talking and planning that is involved, and then producing the slideshows for the talks that we're doing and all of the marketing and the promo, that being personally creative has taken a little bit of a back burner. But it's kind of like you go in waves,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you just go with the flow, and it all comes together.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's, our process is, well, we're both good promote. Holly's a great promoter, and I did marketing in my other life,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, many artists, I have a lot of talent, but they're not good business people, and they just don't do promotion, or I don't know how to go about it.
Right.
But
Right. Yeah.
we,
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of skills. I think two things that struck me, especially, in talking to you folks, is that I think you've mentioned me on our previous conversation, Ward, that most people envision themselves 15 to 20 years younger than they are. Well, you guys are in your 30s, as far as I'm concerned. Your energy
thanks, Ron.
is robust.
Some days I'll go for 70, some days.
Right. Well, 70 is the new 50, as they say. And I'm looking forward to that. And I like your notion of resilience. Holly, before the break, you were talking about some of the ways that you inspire each other, and give me the play on words with Ward. Your
Oh,
onward.
so when we would get together, and then I would drive and he would navigate me, and Ward would be saying, "Well, where are we going? What are we doing with this?" I would say, "Onward, upward, forward." And because his name is Ward, and then when I would email him, I would capitalize the WARD,
Right.
and he would retort with, "Go Holly."
Go Holly, go luckily. Yeah,
Right,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So I think that's great, and I really admire it, and it's inspirational, your leadership. And then one of the things also, Holly, that I love, that you're when you talk about, when people ask you, where did you grow up, your response is what?
I haven't grown up yet.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's the spirit I want to leave people with as we go forward. So I realize we could keep talking for another hour, folks, but I want to thank you for a terrific conversation. And if people have questions or comments for you, they can reach you by email, right? Or
Yes.
Sure.
And you didn't mention, we have a more current website
Okay.
that is
Okay.
parallelperspectivesbook.com,
Okay.
and it has all of our programs, everything.
Great.
And the Amazon link, the amazon.com, that has our book, also has a series of minute video teasers
Right.
on
Great.
the different aspects of our book.
Okay, great. Okay, folks. Well, listen, tell your friends that they missed my conversation with Holly and Ward today. You can listen to it as a podcast on voiceamerica.com. Just search for my show, 45 Forward. You can also find it on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or go to my site, redwellresources.com. Click on 45 Forward. So, folks, be sure to join me next Monday, 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, keep moving forward, 45 forward.